What's going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. Being fans of video games on the internet, we like to make fun of things on occasion. However, that hobby can sometimes grow to include Pokémon that really haven't done much of anything wrong, and then they start to get a bandwagon of people on board until suddenly it's just a fact that said Pokémon is awful. Well, I'm here to take on these preconceived notions, and once again tackle the topic of overhated Pokémon. And if you don't see some of the ones that you're expecting, they might actually deserve some of that hate, or I might have already covered them when I did this topic a few years ago. Number 6. Flamigo. Look, you guys are being pretty harsh on this bird guy that just wants to hang out and stand around with his pals. The most common complaint about this Pokemon is that, quote, it's just a flamingo, but I feel like that's incredibly short-sighted. I mean, you can easily tell what this is going for at a glance, but real flamingos don't have their necks tied in a knot at the base, or at least I hope they don't, and apparently it does so to contain its immense power, but we'll get back to that. Its name also receives disdain because people complain that it's just the word flamingo without the N, but they didn't just pluck out a letter at random. They're all acting like amigo isn't even a word that has meaning, as this is a friendly flamingo. It's not like it's just a different spelling of the same word while being a thinly disguised retread of an existing animal, so I find it disingenuous to pretend like there was zero effort put into this design and name, when there are other birds that are just as boring in Paldea yet have none of the flack. Oh, a bird with an apron, I've never seen that in Pokemon before. But all of that is beside the point because this thing is way too good to ignore completely. Being one of the very few fighting and flying types means that Flamigo already has a great advantage. But for some unknown reason, they decided to make it way too easy to find it early in Scarlet and Violet. Without even really traveling too far out of your way, you can grab a Pokemon that's got 200 to 300 extra base points in their stats over any of the other Pokemon that you'll be catching. And it can easily carry your team for the rest of the game even when you don't want it to. I don't know if they put the pink bird so early just because they felt bad that even the people around the Game Freak headquarters wouldn't stop insulting it, but if you have never picked up Flamigo, you can't know the power that it presents. Maybe if it were stuck in the mid-game like some of the other non-evolving Pokemon, these insults would carry more weight, but for now, it easily stands tall among the competition. Number 5. Swalot. Now, the Gen 3 blobs of poison might not be the most hated Pokemon out there, but they are certainly not the most beloved either. It's a bit strange to devote a whole Pokemon line to basically being stomachs, especially since we've already gotten eating Pokemon before, but these ones are nondescript bags of poison as well, which makes them a bit more like muck, I suppose, in the eyes of some, so you can easily draw parallels to pre-existing Pokemon. But they really do stand out a bit more than that. Their strong stomach acids make them a natural fit for the poison type, being able to dissolve anything, and thankfully they present a good middle ground for pure poison types because they're not as specialized in any one area. Swalot has a better physical defense than Muck, yet a better special defense than Wheezing. Sure, one could argue that a jack of all trades is a master of none, but since Hoenn had so few poison types to introduce, it made sense to have one of them take on offense and the other one be given defense. And I guess maybe Roselia has statuses or something? I don't know. So Swalot was pretty good for taking hits with its high HP, Poison's naturally defensive typing, and it was basically the reason that they invented the Liquid Ooze ability. So go ahead and take advantage of that while you pummel them with your surprisingly large move pool. Like most Pokemon, Swalot is pretty nice to use in a game, so please don't judge it too harshly for being just a purple bag with some diamonds on it. The poor guy already has to swallow enough criticism as it is. Number 4. Enamorus. I'll admit that I never really liked the forces of nature all that much, but it still bothers me a bit that so many people seem to hate their newest member. To me, Enamorus was really exciting because even if she was somewhat random, getting to revisit and shake up a legendary group after so long offered untold possibilities. Just like how adding new Reggies created more intrigue around what used to be familiar in the trio that we already knew. It seems that the most common objection that people have to this edition is that she's a girl, or that it's too feminine looking when compared to the other three, but like, what did you expect from a fertility goddess that it's based on? Some say that she's too skinny, which probably would have been an excuse if we didn't have the twig limbs even smaller than hers as the norm in Generation 8 anyway. But her incarnate form has a lot more detail to it than the others, with her hair taking on the shape of a heart, which is much better than whatever Landorus was trying to do. At least she's sticking to the theme here, and she keeps up the horn trend that I bet a lot of fans still haven't noticed, giving her 4 of them. Plus, her tail has hearts on it, yes, but it also intentionally looks like a snake coiled around her, not just a boring copy of what all of the others were doing. But of course, that doesn't even cover why we really did need Enamorus, because she finally completes the quartet that the others were based on, utilizing the directional Chinese guardian symbols of the dragon, tiger, tortoise, and bird. These are apparently what the Therian forms have been based on the whole time, but I literally never knew it until I saw Enamorus as a turtle. In my defense, Thundurus doesn't really look that much like a dragon, nor did it gain the dragon typing, but even if Enamorus looks totally awkward as this turtle, it was still necessary for her to be here and complete the inspirations that were hidden in the lore of these legendaries for years, and actually managing to lift up one of the worst legendary units, even if it is just a tiny bit. Number 3. Popplio. Starter Pokemon are usually some of the most popular in any region, and provide a good taste of what's to come in your journey there. However, when Alola was being shown off, we got a glimpse of the starters, and while I was instantly distracted by how adorable Rowlet was, everyone else seemed to look over at Popplio in the other corner and immediately got to work on making fun of this clown seal. And I get the impulse to do so. I mean, you heard me say clown seal, right? But I think just mocking this Pokemon for its design is a shame because it is a great option. Well, except for the middle evolution, I guess. That one's even worse in my eyes. I obviously picked Rowlet for my first time in Alola, but in the Ultra games, I gave Popplio a shot. And while water is nothing special in Pokemon as the most common type, Popplio does bring something unique by presenting us with the first and currently only Fairy-type starter Pokemon. Having your first choice become immune to Dragon is pretty awesome, and it's made all the better by Primarina being such a great Pokemon. Somehow, a circus clown turned into a beautiful mermaid, which I don't think anyone saw coming, but that made it all the more satisfying to watch it use a sparkling aria, and to take advantage of that 126 special attack side. Not to mention a stab Moonblast or two, getting the best of the plethora of dark or fighting starters that we've seen in recent generations. And it is the only known Pokemon to have the Liquid Voice ability as well. Any complaints about it being too girly kind of fall flat when we've had Machoke since Gen 1 with a gender split that doesn't match, so I understand wanting a sort of manly alternative for this line, but a powerful siren more than makes up for the way that it starts. And even then, a clown is not the worst thing that we could have seen. Popplio is based on an animal that we've already had as a Pokemon before, but it's a perfect one to operate on land and sea. So to make it stand apart, they opted for a happy and fun entertainer. The execution might not have been what everybody expected, but the outcome was a solidly cute base form, from which a nautical creature of myth was born, with a very fitting singing gimmick in battle as well. So I think all things considered, we should be grateful that it didn't fall into a full-blown mess like whatever the Galar region was trying to pull off. Number 2. Voltorb. If you think Voltorb is a bad design, you're just wrong. I will never understand how the just-in-item critique of Pokémon extends to this spherical shocker, because while you could find car keys or a lamp or an anchor in the real world, literally no one had ever seen a Pokéball until Gen 1 came out. This can't possibly be described as a boring everyday object because we don't have them here, but that doesn't seem to stop people from saying it anyway. Not only does this provide a great gameplay mechanic, with the player never knowing if they'll pick up a helpful item or be attacked by a lookalike, but it has actual lore implications, making you question which came first, the Voltorb or the Pokéball. Now, I will say that they would have a much stronger case with Electrode saying that it has a lazy design, when it could have at least looked like a Great Ball or something, and its name is an actual word, unlike Voltorb, yet again increasing its creativity, but that's almost not even worth caring about, because it is so blisteringly fast, consistently being in the top 5 fastest Pokemon in the whole game. game, which you would definitely not expect from just a Pokeball, right? Maybe some people never looked at it deeply enough to consider, but we sort of got an answer to this with Eiscue and Voltorb. With such a big change to the Pokeball so long ago, it would have been so easy just to leave Voltorb out of Legends Arceus, but they went the extra mile and took the opportunity to further show that there are natural connections between these Pokemon and the balls, because Eiscue and Voltorb is a grass type with the bottom half being wooden. This was a brilliant idea and makes it clearer than ever that Voltorb isn't just a lazy copy of an existing item, but instead that humans decided that this was a great way to capture the power that's inside. Now, I don't really love Eiscue and Electrode nearly as much as the first stage, but clearly someone did because it was a noble Pokemon as one of the major boss battles in the game. The point is, it makes no sense to lump this circular circuit breaker into the mundane group when it's based on a fantastical item from a land of magical monsters, making it far more than just a Pokeball with eyes. And it is way more fascinating than any plain animal could have been. Number 1. Eiscue. Honestly, I'm a bit tired of people mercilessly disrespecting Eiscue for no real reason. Often, the depth of analysis as to why Eiscue is deemed such a terrible Pokemon is that, quote, it's only a penguin with an ice block for a head. Yep, just like a 5-year-old, people say that it's ugly and that's it. Well, I think plenty of Pokemon are ugly, but other people seem to love them anyway. So you should think for yourself for once and give Eiscue a chance. For instance, its so-called hideous face has an actual purpose because of its signature ability, Ice Face. Quite aptly named, but this allows Eiscue to start the battle with a protective barrier that prevents it from taking any physical damage for a turn until it breaks. So this is like Disguise back when it first showed up, except Ice Face could be argued as better because it can be replenished with Hail. That makes Ice Face more useful than almost any other form-changing ability because Eiscue can actually reset and tank multiple hits per battle. Isn't that a worthwhile trade-off for a giant mascot Ice Cube head? And maybe the best part, Eiscue's stats mold to its different forms, because as we know, purely defensive ice types never really work out. But this frozen flightless bird gets its speed stat cranked through the roof once its noise face shows up. So you get to use a speedy Pokemon to clean up after your defensive one takes a hit, but they're actually the same Pokemon. And yes, I do love penguins, and that may play a part in this, but Pokemon has already done penguins before, and much better in my opinion. However, none of the Piplup line were ice types, so we kind of needed another shot at linking the two. You know, outside of the weird Santa one that's clearly worse than Eiscue could ever be. Seriously, at least Eiscue is trying something new, unlike a bunch of the other random Pokemon from that generation. So even if the design is a little bit simplistic, it works perfectly as a battle gimmick. But also, did we really expect them to never reach the Ice Cube as an idea for as long as the Pokemon series exists? We might as well do it like this when it has actual meaning in the combat, if nothing else. Although the hair being attached to its brain is a bit disturbing, I'll give you that one. So, those are 6 more of the most overhated Pokemon. There are of course hundreds more Pokemon that are constantly disparaged unfairly, so which Pokemon do you think are hated beyond what they deserve? Let me know down in the comments. Also be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And until next time, stay grounded.